Hi everyone, I know this is different from how I typically start up my reviews, and that's because I have a couple announcements to announce, one of which is actually relevant to Exodus, so I would recommend staying tuned. But first, I feel the need to apologize for my absence for the past couple of weeks, and that is because I've been very busy with school and among other things, and I know a lot of people use school as an excuse, but I really have been very, very busy. But good news is that I'm now finished for now, and also good news is that I've only seen one film since my absence, and that is The Babadook. It's kind of up in the air whether or not I'm going to do a review of that, but if you want my opinion, my short opinion, I would recommend it. I do think it is worth seeing. And it does have some problems, but it's a pretty good horror flick. Now, the main reason I'm doing this here is because I want to discuss the controversy regarding Exodus with the casting, which I do indeed talk about in my review, but there's one thing that I forgot to talk about. In the film, all the Imperials are played by people of white skin, but all the people who are extras playing slaves, or people who are, servants or whatever, they're all people of darker skin. In other words, black people. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole, this is what the people of ancient Egypt actually look like, because I don't know, and the subject itself is actually very controversial. However, what I will say is that I do think it is odd with the inconsistency. It's only the white people in the film who are given anything to actually do, while you have the people of color who are given absolutely nothing to do. They're just used as props, and that's essentially it. Now, I could understand this film were trying to showcase some kind of thought-provoking statement or showcase some kind of parallel with the Jews of the time period and the blacks of the 18th century. That would be cool, or maybe it's trying to say something about us in today's society. That would be neat as well, but I'm not entirely sure that's the case. And if that were the case, why doesn't Ridley Scott just come out and say it? Was it a conscious decision? To be honest, it kind of looks that way, but regardless, I think it's not only insensitive to the people of the time period, but I think it's also insensitive to the history as well. But if anything good comes out of this, maybe perhaps Hollywood will be a little bit more aware or a little bit more sensitive to going about these projects. Anyway, if you're still here, that's all I have to say. Without any further ado, here is my review of Exodus, and I hope you enjoy it. Hi, welcome to my review of Exodus, Gods and Kings, directed by Ridley Scott, a biblical tale that centers around Moses as he guides his fellow Hebrews out of their slavish shackles in ancient plague-ridden Egypt and to freedom. Exodus, Gods Among Kings is a film that has gained a lot of controversy, mainly because of the idea of having white actors play characters who are of darker skin. And I understand that wholeheartedly. However, I also understand the decision as to why they casted a bunch of white actors to play these roles. And, well, I'll say this. This film exists for two primary reasons. One is to entertain, and two, the biggest reason, is to make money. This film is trying to appeal to an audience that Hollywood deems to be the most profitable, the masses, in other words, white people. And I'm not using this as an excuse, however, from a business standpoint, I do think it makes sense. But with that said, like everyone else, I would have loved to have seen this film strive for something that is more authentic versus, okay, let's just go for some white actors and put them in some dark makeup and call it done. To me, I think that would have given the film a little bit more soul. However, even with everything I just said, the whole racial issue is perhaps the least of this film's problems. For a film that is based upon something that I would deem to be spiritual, this film is relatively soulless. It's kind of like having a dry piece of turkey sandwiched right between these two very dry pieces of stale bread. This film is really dry. It's kind of the same problem I have with Noah, except I think it actually might be worse here because these characters, they're not all too well developed. They're not all too interesting. And really the first hour, it seems to just sort of, at least in my opinion, it just kind of wonders, and it's just like, well, damn, I wish something would happen because I'm about to fall asleep here. I'm not kidding. I was really tired watching the first hour of this film. In my personal opinion, it was a little excruciating, and I did not like it at all. In the opening battle sequence, I've heard a lot of people talk about and praise, but as for me, I wasn't a big fan of it because, well, for one, I just didn't find it entertaining. To me, it was just a bunch of random fighting, and it just seemed to kind of go on for too long, and I was bored by it. And going back to the characters, I like Moses played by Christian Bale. I really do, but I just wish I knew the character more. Yes, I know that he's a noble person. I know that he's a great leader, a loving father, a loving husband, and he can even be a loving brother, but it really just felt as if the film was just telling me these things rather than just showing me these things. And I wouldn't say that Moses is written badly, I just think that he's written very generically. And with the exception of Ramesses, played by Joel Edgerton, all the other characters are very flat, and all the actors are pretty much given absolutely nothing to do. Aaron Paul was pretty much paid just to stand around and stare, and I'm not even remotely kidding. He really was paid to just stand around and stare. But besides that, the acting as a whole is actually pretty solid with some good performances by Joel Edgerton and especially Christian Bale. But there is one performance that is a bit of a standout, surprisingly, and that is Isaac Andrews, who is just a kid. He blew me away in this, and mostly because he's a kid, but still, I mean, able to kind of hold his own up against Christian Bale. I think that is something kind of praiseworthy. And just so you know, Isaac Andrews, he plays the messenger of God in the film. Now, if you can't already tell, I'm starting to transition into the things that I like about the film, and one of which is that the film is very visually pleasing, and not only that, but the spectacle in the later parts of the film, with the scenes with the plague and all that stuff, I mean, those scenes are freaking awesome. The plague starts out with a bunch of crocodiles attacking all these ships, killing all these people, killing all these fish, turning the water blood red in the process, which just looks fantastic in the film, by the way. But the plague just escalates and gets worse and worse and worse, and it just gets really intense. And to be clear, because I did not mention it earlier, it takes about the first hour or so for the film to actually start to get good, and that's when Moses meets the messenger of God. To me, that's really when the film really started to kind of grind its gears and really started to actually get going. Overall, I wouldn't necessarily recommend just rushing out and seeing Exodus Gods and Kings. However, I would recommend renting it. So I'm going to give Exodus Gods and Kings a high 2.5 out of 5. As always, I'm Colyn Kirkland, and thank you so much for watching.